Welcome to Widowed Too Soon, where real-life widows and widowers come together to share their stories of survival, faith, and the journey of finding hope in the darkest of times. Whether you're newly widowed or have been on this journey for some time, each week we're here to provide you with inspiration, practical advice, and the reassurance that you are not alone. You were made to not only survive, but thrive. And now here's your host, a woman who has walked this path herself, who finds solace in writing, joy in speaking, and freedom in dancing like nobody's watching. Michelle Bader Ebersole.
Hey guys, before we get into another great episode, I just wanted to come in here and tell you we have now, as of May 4th, celebrated 4 years of the Widowed Too Soon podcast. So celebrate that with me. That's a huge accomplishment. We've had guests from all over the world. We're in 109 countries. We have 175 episodes, well, 176 today, and so much more to come. You know, there was a time when I was going to put down the podcast and I felt like God so strongly told me no. Well, it wasn't a word, it was a vision. Like I saw all these people that I was like handing these megaphones to, and it was as if God was saying, hey, there's so many more people that want to tell their stories. And if you want to be a guest, please let me know. If you're waiting, I will get back to you. It's been a little nuts with the launch of the book. As you guys probably know, I am launching Widow Goals, Steps to Finding Peace When You Lose Your Spouse on May 23rd, which is the 5-year anniversary of Luke's death. And in this book, I take 30 goals of things that you can accomplish. The first one's get out of bed. There's have an eternal perspective. Know that you are chosen. Call on your tribe. Tell your friends what to say and not to say. That actually has a downloadable PDF that you can share with them. Anyways, that's coming out May 23rd. It is on sale for pre-sale right now on Kindle for $7.99. So if you're interested, please go get the book. It actually helps put it up in the ranks, so more widows will get the book and get this message, and you'll be able to get it on hardcover, hardback, paperback, large print, audiobook, and all the places on May 23rd. So just wanted to share those things with you. Thanks for being here for 4 years, and let's go ahead and get into our episode. Welcome to Widowed Too Soon. This is Michelle Bader Ebersole. Thank you for joining us today. We have a guest that I'm going to introduce you to in just a minute. But first, I want to talk about my book. As you guys know, I've been talking about it every episode. I'm so excited. It is going to launch on May 23rd, 2025, which is the 5-year anniversary of Luke's death. And I chose this date because it's very personal to me. And I want to show that something good came out of his death. And I'm actually doing a launch party the next week. One of my good friends who knew Luke as well, she's hosting at her house, and we're making it really fancy. And she's like, is there a theme from the book? And I'm like, well, people told me that the most valuable thing is the chapter I do called Know That You Are Chosen, which I have done a podcast episode about this. And it's about how God gave me this vision that he chose me to be Luke's wife, and it wasn't a punishment. And people have told me, no, okay, that sounded bad. Punishment that he died. That's what I used to think. Like, it's a punishment that he died. But anyways, that has changed everything. So we decided to incorporate that into the party, and we're going to have this remembrance wall. And so, because not everyone there's going to be widowed, like half the people aren't or more. And so we're going to talk about anybody you loved, you were chosen to be in their life. And so people are going to get to write the name of their loved ones and put it on this wall. And then there's going to be a mirror that says I'm chosen that you can take pictures in. And I'm just super excited to get this out. We're working on a press release, all kinds of things. So if you want to be informed about the book, there's a link in the show notes where you can make sure you're on the list to get it right away. So that's my little plug for my book. I'm going to say it every episode. And it's called Widow Goals, Steps to Finding Peace When You Lose Your Spouse. And it's 30 individual goals, and it is for widows and widowers. And they can be taken in any order. You just look at the table of contents and you say, okay, today I'm going to do call on your tribe. I'm going to do how to be a solo parent. I'm going to do dating. Like, there's all these different categories that you can just choose for whatever you're going through. So I'm super excited to get that out to you. But I really want to get to our guest. So today I have with me Mathew Bradley, and you may have heard his name in the widow community because he is the host of the Solo Dad podcast. And we have been TikTok friends and friends online for several years. So how are you, I almost said Bradley. Mathew, I'm reading your last name.
I've been called way worse. First off, awesome on the book. I think I kind of knew about that. Fantastic. Super excited to always have more relevant new information out on grief and being widowed and moving forward with living again and all those fun phrases. So I'm doing well. Where I currently reside in Denver, we're having our 15th false winter into spring snow. So we're good. I mean, we came out of spring break. We had some extra days. All of the parents were high-fiving that we got our kids back alive, and now it was like a snow day. We're like, cool. All right.
Snow day right now?
Well, it's another, I don't know. So anyway, yeah, we're good. We're doing well.
You know what I appreciated about the intro? Like, you knew to be silent, but you were like making face. If you guys are watching on Spotify and you see the video, he knew, because sometimes guests, I forget to tell them, like, don't say anything yet until I introduce you. And so, because if you're listening, all of a sudden you're like hearing someone talk, but I haven't introduced them. So thank you for knowing. And I appreciate your great microphone so that we can hear you well.
I never understood the whole passion of someone who would be like an audiophile, someone who really likes music or whatever, records, until you got into podcasting. I'm like, oh, I get it now.
You can tell the difference. So anyways, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to learn more about, because I don't know a lot about your story, to learn more. And we love having widowers on, because it's like, I don't know, every 10 widows, we get a widower on somewhere in there. So we have only had a handful in almost 4 years. And so I know that and we have several, widower guests. I mean, not guests, in the audience. And so I know they're going to appreciate hearing from you. So let's just start. I want to hear your whole story. Let's start. Let's go to the backstory of how you met your wife.
So the joke is, and I used it often, my wife actually quoted me in our wedding video. So we met the old-fashioned way, online. We could never remember if it was Match or eHarmony, because we were kind of both doing the same. We both kind of had the same story. We met late in life. I was 38, I think, and she was 35, if I do my math right. And I'd been a single parent. I have an older child. We met in Chicago, and it was one of those things where, like, we started to have conversations. We took it to the phone, and we were talking on the phone, and between professional schedules and personal schedules and being a single parent, it was like we were talking for like a month. Finally, she was like, in typical my wife Marcy's fashion, she was like, "Is this gonna happen? Like, are we meeting or not?" It was like, once it got normal, I'm like, "Oh, that's totally her thing. Like, when it's time, it's time. Like, we go." And so we met in a wonderful restaurant in downtown Chicago. Our date, we shut down the restaurant, and then our second date was about 10 days later. It was 18 hours long. And basically, we did the river tour. We had like drinks before, and we did all the things, right? It was a wonderful time. And I left there going like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I want to somehow make sure this lady's in my life as long as possible. Which is when one of her friends was grilling me, because you imagine she had a tribe in Chicago, and they're like, well, what are your intentions with her? And I was like, hopefully to get her show up to this thing called a wedding in a couple of years. Like, if I can fool her into that, I have done it. So we met online, and we were kind of in both the same space. We were like, all right, we're going to give it one last try. And if not, career, here I go. Right. She had kind of had all the typical stories we hear now about bad dating, and just like, oh gosh, like, how's this going to, and we both kind of were like, with intention, right, threw our net back out there again, and we found each other, and it was really good. I actually just had to sit down with my sister-in-law, her sister, because it's been 6+ years since she passed. And the short version is, it was quick. We met, moved in, got married, had a baby. And so I'm kind of Reader's Digesting this. For those that don't know what Reader's Digest is, there's this little book that,
right? Some people, young ones, don't know.
I just realized. Anyway, it shut it down.
We would keep in the bathroom.
Right. Yeah. To read. Right. Exactly. To read the jokes.
Before the phone in the bathroom.
Yeah. So, you know how you have YouTube and you have TikTok that's shorter? That's Reader's Digest. But anyway, we met, moved in, got married, had a baby, cancer, and then she died all inside of 5 years. 4 years, 300 some odd days. Yeah. So the phrase I was able to get out a lot of times is a lot of living and a lot of loving in 5 years. And then as you get time away, you go, was it really that good? Maybe I'm just misremembering, doing the pedestal thing with grief. And I asked my sister-in-law, and she goes, you're probably right. It probably wasn't as good as you remember. It was better. And I'm just like, thanks. So we met the old-fashioned way. We lived in Chicago. We had an intention, right? And it was like, do you want a family? I'm like, well, I have one, and kids are mostly good.
Right. They take a lot.
Kids are great.
Work.
Everyone should have them. They're fantastic. And so we did, and it was all with intention. And and so she was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. There's no family history. March is colon cancer awareness month. Good Lord. So I get on a soapbox about that. And it was just got at stage 4. Our kiddo was 86 days old, and she made it basically 1 month past her first birthday. And so it's one of those times for all those that are on a grief journey. In my world, in my vernacular, I use terminal versus tragic, right? So tragic, I put in car accidents, things unexpected quickly, right? In terminal, there might be a runway to it, like it's coming. I mean, technically we're all terminal, but like you kind of right. And so I use those to and so we had a little bit of time to talk about things, and when we both kind of knew that this was not going to end the way any movie script would want it to end, we again in typical Marcy fashion just got down to like living and being intentional. And we had a mantra of like, say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done, because not everybody gets this gift of a terminal diagnosis. I mean, it sounds terrible, but
no, I get it.
Yeah. And so anyway, that's how I came into this time of grief. Grief has been around with me since I was 11. My dad died when I was 11, and my brother was 6. Wow. And my mom is the oldest old school OG solo mom that I know. And she is a saint, and she is a wonderful person. And she has definitely been a background player in me being able to survive that first. Time is irrelevant. We'll go year, but I feel like that's not really, we know this grief isn't linear, right? And so, grief has been this go round has been very interesting, and informative and different. And as I'm older now, right? And I've had grief in between there too, but in losses, but, it's one of those things where you're like, I remember I'm in the kitchen with my mom. So my wife died September 22nd, 2018. It's probably after the first batch of holidays. I'll just pick a random time. It's April. And I remember looking at her like, how did you do this? I don't understand how one of us didn't not make it out. Like, how did you raise 2 kids? And my mom's quick defense was, she goes, oh, you guys weren't babies. It was easy. I'm like, what do you mean it was easy? Like, she just was like, I'm like, oh. And that's it. It was amazing. We traveled a bunch because we knew we were going to start a family. So we took some amazing trips, made some amazing memories. The pregnancy was normal and mostly normal. The kiddo didn't want to turn around, so she wound up being delivered by C-section. Yeah. But it's all those things. And then with my perspective of being a son of a widow, I don't even know what the term is for us. Anyway, you're not an orphan. Widow, I don't know. Anyway, of being raised by a solo mom is all of a sudden there's different things I feel like I'm very acutely aware of, and I'm like, oh yeah, like there's no good time for someone significant in your life to die. In comparison is no good, but like I'm keenly aware that my daughter is definitely been raised by a dude for 6 of her 7 years, because he has some attributes where I'm like, oh, that would not be okay if your mom was alive. Like, you would not be allowed to do certain things. So trying to increase some feminine energy in the household at times. I shared a story one time when she was baby, and I shared it with another widower, and he kind of called it back to me one time. And so an example of this would be like, I'd be rubbing her back as she's falling asleep, and then I'd dial back my hand pressure, because I'm like, well, a dad's touch is different than a mom's touch, and I just say it's softer, and so I try to soften it up, which is weird, right? It's a weird perspective to have, and a weird thing to look through the world through as well too. So,
Right. Wow.
so that was a lot.
That was a lot in a real quick amount of time. Let's back it up a
Sure.
little bit and tell me about like when she was 6. His my husband also died from cancer. Your story reminds me a lot of the beginning of my story. So Luke and I, like, we had met in high school, but then we started dating, got married a year later, got pregnant, found out he was cancer all in 1 year. Like from the time, well, from the very beginning of that, yeah, it was pretty much 2 years to the cancer and all that stuff. And it was just like a whirlwind. So it was like people would talk about their first year of marriage, how it was so hard. I'm like, how did you have cancer? Like, I don't get it. Like, did someone in your life have cancer? Like, because, this is a side note, but it really bothers me when people complain about 2020 and COVID and how hard. And I'm like, did your husband die during 2020? Because that's when Luke died.
This just came up the other day. It just came. It was kind of random, and we're like, there are people, that did not get however big or little of the ceremony of the goodbye was going to be. They didn't get it.
No, we had to have 10 people at his graveside service. I was so mad. My own brothers had to be in their cars watching it they were live streaming it. They had to sit in their cars because we didn't have enough room. Like, it makes me so mad when I think about it. Like, so don't complain about 2020. Right. I mean, I'm talking to the wrong audience. You guys, I know you've all lost somebody, but and then I think about the COVID widows. Their spouses died of COVID and they couldn't be with them. Right. And that breaks my heart. Yeah. And I know some of you are listening and I am so sorry for that situation. But anyways, backing up to our stories, cancer. Mm-hmm. So what did she do? Treatments? Like, what was that?
Yeah. Like? So serendipitously, ironically, my wife had she thought at one point she was going to be a doctor, but she wound up being in corporate finance for medical companies. So for most of her career. And so she had a pre-med background. So she kind of like talked to doctors and doctor speak, which was really interesting. And I'm not that smart. Or that type of smart. And I'd just be like, what are we talking about? So what she did is, we were very blessed between her network and my network and people we know. I mean, her case went to all the places. So it went down to MD Anderson. It went to one of the cities of hopes. It went to Sloan Kettering in New York, which is a big cancer, place for colon cancer. It went out to UCLA. It went to a place in San Francisco. And so they basically all came back with the same thing, saying like, this type of cancer, there's basically about 2 alternatives with what you got going on. And so she, what was it? A week after she was diagnosed, I don't even think that long. September. Yeah. She had a port put in and she started doing chemo treatments, and we timed it so she could quasi enjoy Thanksgiving. Sounds bizarre, right?
I get it. Yep.
And so she elected, and we had a conversation. It was like, all right, well, like, what do you want? Do you want to go? She's like, I'll go back to work. Her work was super supportive. She'd have a take-home chemo pump. That's what they do with what she was having done. And so she'd feel terrible like Wednesday, Thursday, and they'd take it off Friday. She would get through the weekend and go back to work for 2 weeks. And so
she was working. Wow.
Yeah. I think, we had I was like, well, what do you want to do? And she'd had a life before we met. And she was kind of like, there's this so we did that. I don't know if any other couples did this with cancer diagnosis, but we did a illegitimate pinky swear. If you're watching me, if you can't see it because I'm using air quotes, where we wouldn't look up the stats. We both looked up the stats, right? And stage 4 colon cancer, there's only a 5-year survival rate, I think, is less than 7%. And that's for all ages. I think if you're under 50, it's way less than that. And so she was young. And so we were like, well, this probably isn't going to go the way we want it to. So it was kind of like the phrase from Shawshank, do you want to, get busy living or get busy dying? And basically she was like, I've done all the things that I'd want to do up until now, including having a kid and traveling internationally and seeing the things I've got to see and working internationally before I met you. And I was like, you want to see the Aurora Borealis and just max out the credit cards and go nuts? And she's like, I want to be around my friends and family. I just, and I want to be around our baby. And I just want to try to have some normalcy. And so she did the treatments. And then for anybody listening about colon cancer, it's pretty standard where they go like, okay, hopefully your cancer is really dumb and it can't figure out chemo and it just stays at bay. And that happened for a bit and it did everything it was supposed to do. And then basically because her decision was to throw everything out at one time in one cocktail. So sometimes they can mix it into 2. And she's like, no, let's go home run.
Yep.
And she handled it really, really well. She had some neuropathy, but I mean, really never really got sick. I mean, like never had like, didn't throw up. I was just like a champ. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then did a scan and the tumors were growing again. And so basically they're like, there's really nothing left.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of go, okay, well, let's enjoy what we've got.
Yep.
And then at the time, I'm sure other people who have cancer diagnoses or terminal diagnosis, you can find a group, whether it's Facebook or a Reddit page or whatever, Substat, whatever. You can find a group. And I'm in a group, and they made it strictly for caregivers of colon cancer stage 4. Very specific, right? Because it was different. Stage 3 had a little more hope. Stage 2 had more hope, right? And you're just like, you're stage 4. You're like, this is not good.
Yeah.
And so I had been in the group long enough to go like, oh, I'll know what it's like. I see it. I see the things. Well, in the heat, you don't. And basically what happened was like, I'll make up these dates. Don't go quote me, but it was like 60 days between hospital visits. 30 days between hospital visits, 15 days between hospital, less than a week. And then it was hospice, right? And looking back, I'm like, oh, there it was, right? At the time, I'm like, no, this is just another hospital visit. We weren't keeping track of the escalation, if you will, because you're like, who would want to? Anyway, and so again, not to, we were talking, I think before, repress record, like comparisons, the thief of a lot of things. And the example I use in our grief communities that both were in and non-connected, and we Venn diagram over whatever, it's like, if you hit your shin on a bumper and I hit my shin on a bumper, whose hurts worse? Yours, because it's yours. It's your pain, right? So we got hospice there, and she was surrounded by, I think there's a joke in here somewhere because I did it one time. We had something like over 200 people come through the house in like 3 days. Friends and family came from all over. And there was a point when I had a Catholic priest, a Lutheran minister, and an emotional support Great Dane in my house. And
it
there's
sounds
no
like
punchline.
The beginning of a joke. I'm waiting for it.
Right? Exactly. I'm like, I wish I had a punch. That was a thing that happened to me, right? I was like, because this is what she want, right? It's the people that were in our life, and it's what she wanted. And and so it was, on September 22nd, peacefully, just her and I. Stupid Nora Jones song was playing, so can't listen to that.
Right.
And it was, I hate to say, it was beautiful. It's the way most of us should be able to do this. And so, and then the reality sets in. You have a 13-month-old and you go, oh, now you have to figure some stuff out.
That's a lot.
But yeah, so that was our kind of short journey. It was beautiful and wonderful. I know there's that woulda, shoulda, coulda, but there's a great guy named Simon Sinek who talks about this kind of shoulda thing where we always project out the positive, but you go like, well, let's say she'd been diagnosed before she met me. Maybe she wouldn't be interested in dating, just wanted to live the world internationally. We would have never met. We never had our baby. And so right. There is no, we would love to do that, but at the same time, it's just not reality. Right. And so it's like, we all should have invested in this thing called Google 30 years ago, but we didn't. So here we are. So so that's kind of our little journey, all in Chicago. And then the only thing I'll kind of end cap with, and you give me some other prompts to leave. The thing they don't teach you how to deal with in life is how to drive. So we had 2 celebrations of life. One, because we were Chicago based, and 2, because her family was in Ohio. And no one ever teaches you that how you're going to take your probably she was about 14 months at the time, 14-month-old baby across state lines with her mother's urn in the car with you. It's a very weird road trip. Yeah.
Never thought of that before.
No, I'm like halfway through Indiana going like, this is probably going to be the most bizarre thing I ever do in my life.
Yes.
So anyway,
that's hard. So you start this journey. Like, what was it like for you in the beginning as a solo dad? You lost the love of your life. Like, how are you emotionally, physically? Like, what's your life like at that point?
Man, I think, and I don't know if it was before we record. No, it was before we recorded. I think the dude brain goes into block and tackling. It just goes into tactile, right? It's like, I have to have a diaper bag. We have to go to mommy and me classes. Like, I have to have a intimate, very good relationship with our pediatrician. Like because my mom was there to help, but it wasn't
good.
Yeah. Well, we weren't sure how long she was going to be there, and then it was like, what do I do? Like, how do I, and I think the best description I can have is if you're, I'll repeat this many times. Grief has no timeline. There is
That's
no
right.
linear thing with grief.
Mm-hmm.
Is the first year harder than the second? I don't know, because now you know things. Is the third year easier? I don't know. It's all irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely was like, I remember almost like being concussed. And there's a great book that talks about like grief fog is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
And like, thank goodness and cursedly for Facebook and Google Memories and all those things. Like if someone had told me in the first year that I went to Istanbul for Thanksgiving, I'd been like, well, if that's what Google says, yeah, because it's a
Yeah.
weird, like, because you're waking up, you're feeding the baby, you're changing, you're doing your thing, you're hanging around all day. And we were very blessed that I didn't have to go back. And the company I worked for at the time, and I was not important, treated me unbelievably well. I was so supported. And our grief leave is complete BS in this country. It's probably bad in every country, but like I was very, very well supported. But it was a lot of if I look back, it was a lot of like, sign up for this, do this. And a little bit of, if I stay busy, it won't hurt as much.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Which is not a real thing.
Right.
Because eventually, and I've said this before, yeah, and I'm sure you've read this, I love this, which is like grief, like every other emotion, demands to be expressed and witnessed.
Yeah.
And if you don't let it, it's going to show up some weird way a year or 10 years later. Yes. You'll be like, oh, this is why I'm doing, this is why I'm crying in a grocery store 10 years later. So, yeah. So it was a lot of block and tackling. It was a lot of almost kind of like, what do I do now? And then it was 2000, it was late 2018. Then it was 2019. And then as you brought up, then it was 2020 and it got all surreal, right? It was like, oh, and so it's almost, there was like a year that it paused.
Yeah.
And then right after that, I decided that our forever home wasn't going to be our forever home. And I have an older daughter that lived a little bit further away. And I'm like, I can't keep, for the next 3 years of her high school career, I was like, I can't keep doing this, drive back and forth with a little baby. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to move until she graduates high school. And so in the middle of all that, I moved, which, so they tell you, like, don't move in the first year. And so it wasn't quite the first year, but I moved. And so I think I also, now settling in Denver, I've realized that I was very busy, and on the outside, it looks totally normal. And the longer I sat both in that place and now here, there's been I was subconsciously avoiding it because I'm like, well, you can't grieve and pack a box. I mean, you can, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't decorate a new house and be grieved. It was like, and then as I've kind of settled and slowed down a little more, I'm like, whoa, yeah, it's almost like, for me, and I don't know if other folks are this way, but like the grief lens makes you not see the reality of what you're doing. Like and we listen, we don't judge. When people hop in our widow groups, and I'm going to exaggerate all of this, and they're like, hey, I just met the next love of my life on the drive home from my husband's funeral. You're like, there's never, well, I have one date about dating after someone dies, and it's on my podcast, and I'll say it again here. There's just one rule. You can't bring your date to the funeral. Other than that, nobody has any idea what the heck you've been through. Right. Like, I have widow friends that their person was like, you will do horrible alone. You are my soulmate. I met you. I need you to find happiness for yourself and our children as soon as possible. No one knows that conversation. Right. And so all of a sudden this person's out dating 6 months. Everyone's judging them. You're like, they were a cancer patient for 3 years. Yep. They stopped being their spouse far before that. Right. And so, but it's more about how much healing have they done, and have they done the process, and are they still in the process while they move forward? Right. To quote, what's her name? Nora McHenry, we move forward with it. We don't move on from it. It's a great TED Talk about grief. And I think that my grief was masking, like, oh, this is all, I was fine, but it was like this, oh yeah, I'm just doing these things. And I'm very guyish fashion, right? Very mechanically, like, I'll do this, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do this. And grief was just going to happen. And I wasn't really ever giving it any legitimate space to exist in my life, because, who likes to be sad?
Right. We talk a lot about this. So I'm a grief recovery method specialist, and I do these classes. And one of the biggest things I learned, and that was, they call them STIRBs. It means short-term energy relieving behaviors. Anything we do to distract from feeling the pain. And so it's like, you're moving, you're doing all this stuff. It's so that you don't have to feel it. but it's still going to be there. Like,
Oh yeah.
you're going to hit it sometimes. So my counselor actually told my son, he was 12 at the time, that you need to work through your grief because it's like constipation, like it's going to get all backed up. You're going to explode and it's not going to be pretty. In 12-year-old boy talk, that he understood that. And that's what I tell people. Like, you got to work through it.
Yeah.
You can't just sit there and like, so in grief recovery, we actually go through like your whole relationship with your late spouse, the good, the bad, all of it.
Yeah.
Work through it. Because here's another thing, the pedestal, you talked about that earlier. A lot of people, and I just wrote a chapter about this, like they just want to remember the good, but that's not the reality, because nobody's marriage is perfect. And so my counselor helped me to see that these things happened, you can talk about them, they're facts. And so helped me to work through stuff that was like unfinished. And then we actually, in grief recovery, we write letters to the person and read
beautiful.
it aloud. And it's such a powerful thing because people are able to move forward after working through all of this stuff. And I think, like I didn't get it when I was a brand new TikToker and I would say like, it's going to get better. Oh my gosh, I cringe at my early videos, like dancing on the countertop. I was crazy. I just went, so at this widow's retreat I did recently with
I saw it. Fantastic.
Oh
good for you. Oh,
no.
how great. Yeah.
Well, I look at it.
Where were you guys? Nashville? No, where were you guys?
Oh, well, that's a different one. But yes, I did Nashville. But like, when we were
Early
in Scottsdale, I showed them, they'd never seen my early, we just put it on the screen, my early TikTok videos. And I go, I was working through my grief. Okay. Like I look at it now, I literally would get on countertop and do this little like what to say to a widow. And like, why couldn't I just tell them that? Why did I have to do the dance? I'm like, it was a trend. I was trying to stay with the trend.
I was trying to stay with the trend.
And I look at that. And one of the things I used to say all the time to people is like, it's going to get better. I'm like 6 months out. It's getting better. And people be like, I'm 10 years. It does not. What I didn't understand at that point that I learned in grief recovery is they didn't deal with it. You have to deal with your grief. It's like having a flat tire and saying in a year, it's going to be better. If you do nothing, it's going to be in the same place.
I love that. You said something and I there's a book, Because I Had a Baby. Oh, excuse me. Back this up. I did not have the baby. Someone gave me a baby at a hospital. My wife had the baby. There's no we in that thing. I will never, ever admit to having any participation in that, because that is not what I did. But anyway, so I had a lot of books, right, that I was reading to her. And there's this book called Going on a Bear Hunt. And
I quote that in my book. Yes,
so
go ahead.
It's fantastic, right?
I say the same thing.
I do it all the time. You can't go around it. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You have to go through it.
Yep, that's grief. Yep.
And I don't know how that correlation happened in your brain, but my brain, someone said once, maybe it was just
someone told me.
Well, I think what I heard was someone said you have to go through it. In my brain, at where I was at reading to a 2-year-old, where I was like, go through it. Bared it. And so then like we'll go fast forward like a month later, I'm reading to her one night. I'm like bawling, right? Because I'm like, it's all about grief. It's not about a bear hunt. You gotta go through it. And then what's interesting, and the other analogy I use, and I've been using it a lot lately, which is when people go like, when does this get better? It doesn't. My dad died, stupid math, 38 years ago. Do I miss him any less now than I missed him when I was 11? No. I'm having new epiphanies all the time where I'm like, people get to talk to their dads about stuff like when they're 40. Holy crap. I didn't know that was an option. This is what I've started to say. I was like, if I asked you to pick up the heaviest weight you can pick up today, and I made you do it every day for a year, does that weight get lighter? No. You get more efficient at carrying it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. I've also heard it explained. I saw this video one of my friends sent to me, and it's like a ball bouncing in a square. So, and there's a little red button.
I've seen this one. Yeah. This is like, really good too.
Yeah. When the ball hits the button, you feel the pain, and your square is really small in the beginning, and it just expands. So it's hitting the button less, but it's still going to hurt. It's still going to
hurt.
Yeah.
And I all these are so much better. And poor Kubler-Ross and David Kessler, where people take it all out of context about the stages of grief, right? And it's not even the stages. And they even say in like the third line of the book, this is meant to be descriptive, not prescriptive. And people just can't. They're like, give me, of course, what would you rather, Michelle? Would you rather have 5 stages that you can check off, you're done with it? Or this ball that's bouncing around the rest of your life, hitting you in a sore spot? Right. I would much rather be like, give me the 5-step program. Right. Like, but that's not how grief works. And I love the fact, though, I love your flat tire analogy, because the picking up the weight, getting efficient, I think that's like the grief that we learn to carry. And then I love words, because words have meaning and context matters. That the act of mourning, that being sad, all of the things we see in the movies, the thing that we think grief is really on the outside, if you don't address that flat tire, you're going to have those drop to the knees, bawling your eyes out, ugly cries in the middle of the grocery store, in the parking lot, whatever. If you don't do some work, and this is another thing that I love, that I'm stealing this, all of this, someone could just hodgepodge us all together. It's all stolen. And I wish I could quote who said this. This is what I love. It's like, the reason my healing and your healing is different is because our love for our person, and it was different, and they're a different person. Right. Like, you can't love the same person the same way, even though there's someone else can have the exact same story I have, but their love is going to be different. And so and they're a different person. So how they heal. So one person, like, I love the letter thing, but someone might be like, writing letters is the dumbest thing I could ever do. It didn't do anything for me. Someone else, maybe it's ice bath plunges, or someone else, it's the, setting up a memory box and putting stuff into it and revisiting it every year. Maybe that's their thing. Right. Or planting trees, or in the person's name. And so everyone's a little different, but I think the most important thing is you've got to do the work, because otherwise,
that is so true.
When people are 10 years out and they're like, it's just terrible, I think the bigger question back to them, if you have this sort of relationship, was like, well, what have you done? Have you done anything? And they're like, well, I went to group therapy. I went, not to put them down, I'll just say group therapy. I almost said grief share. Grief share is great. It can be wonderful for people. I went to a group therapy. It wasn't for me.
Right.
And then they just stop. You're like, so you didn't read a book? You didn't try an online group? You didn't try going on a grief retreat? And they're like, no. We're like, well, 10 years out, you may want to think about it.
Yeah.
Right. And people have to kind of dabble. Like, I've found kind of what works for me. And I think,
what are the things that helped you?
Carbs. I just eat a lot of pizza, shove it way down. Deep dish pizza in Chicago, right? You just carbo load. No, so for me, it's really been a couple of things. One, I think just because I've always kind of been like, no matter what it is, I'm like, I want to read something about it. Right. I want to get some knowledge. And then, just like so many other things in life, you can pick and choose. Right. You can pick a little bit out of this book. You can pick it. And it's also where you're at. Like, Megan Devine is amazing early on with her refuge and grief. She does amazing stuff. But 4 or 5 years out, you're kind of like, I could take that class again, but I don't know if it's going to speak to me the same way. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of, that's where you're at with it. So first, reading and kind of gathering knowledge. The other one for me is, and you said it, you're going to do it in your book, and good for you. Your tribe of people that are going to support you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use the 33% again. This is all just random. Some of your people that have always showed up for you, 33% of them are going to always show up for you no matter what. And they're going to show up. Then you're going to have the surprise 33% of people that this happened to me. I didn't know this, but my tribe of dudes that I've been friends with for over 30 years coordinated who was going to be visiting me. I didn't know they did this. Right. Randomly. My buddy was like, oh, I'm coming out. I'm like, for what? He goes, just to hang, just be out with you between Halloween and Thanksgiving. Okay, cool, dude. Nice. I didn't know that the other 4 of them were going, when are you going out? When are you?
That's awesome.
Right. So these guys kind of, not they were all my really good friends, but they surprised me how they showed up.
Yeah.
And you'll have some other people that you wouldn't. I had a couple other people have these deep, meaningful conversations with me early in my grief where I was like, I didn't know we were those type of friends. You know what I mean? It was like, whoa. And then some people that I thought never did. No judgments. I was just like, well, where was that person? And then the other 33%, I will say, will be people that you're going to bond, hopefully not trauma bond, different topic, but you're going to bond through grief. Right. My solo dad group on Facebook is 700 plus strong guys that all get it.
Yep.
That all get it. Right. Whether they're a year out or 10 years out, they all get it.
Yep.
They just get it. And so you can post something in there, whether it's how you cried because, you saw, you open, like for me, I moved and I opened a box and I was like, no, I shouldn't have done that. And you just have you have a day where you're like, well, I'm done for the day. And they get it. Where if I send that to a normie, a regular happy person, they'd be like, why are you crying over a box? And so I think that's my, so my 3 parts was learning a little bit, finding a tribe. And I think this is a guy thing. The third is there's got to be some movement. You got to move your body.
I think that's for women too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think there is something about, because some of my best early on, griefs was after some pretty nasty workouts, lifting
Yep.
very heavy things.
Mhm.
And
For
my
me,
analogy,
running. Mhm.
right? And by pushing, we're not
Yeah.
talking just
Yeah.
like, you know,
Like you're
going for a walk on the
crying.
treadmill,
Yeah.
right? And I need to go when we watch this movie, watch this movie again. Can you edit that out?
Sure.
Can I watch this movie again, which is the never ending story, which actually
Mm.
is about a kid who lost his mom. You
Mhm.
kind of miss that. There's this big creature in there that's trying to hold on to the sand, and he can't do it anymore, and it's slipping through. And I feel like at times that was grief. Like you want to hold on to it so bad, so you ruin it. If you let it go, it's just going to be a hot mess. And I feel when you physically exert yourself, your body goes, I can't hold on to it anymore. And some of my best cries were in my car after a heavy lifting day.
Yeah.
And I mean, I barely made it to the car. My legs are weak. I'm all, you know, and I get to the car and I'm just ugly crying. I'm like, what is going on? It's, you know, Norah Jones is not on the radio. There's no trigger. It's just my body's like,
I
you
think
don't have
for
the
me,
strength to hold it back.
when the way your body feels like totally exhausted, nothing left, matches your emotions. And then it's like,
Ooh,
it's just like, I'm done.
That is
Like,
true, because it's almost like a really good. That's probably because then it's on like even keel, because like afterwards I'm like, wow, not only am I exhausted, but emotionally I'm depleted as well.
yeah. I found that for me, it was like really hard runs, like running as hard as I could and sometimes crying while I'm running and just all of it. I did a lot of that when Luke was sick too, a lot of processing through running and just awful things.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately one of those people that if you ask me, when people are like, don't you love long, you know, you like check out on a long run, I said no. For my entire life when I run, I go left foot, right foot, please don't die. Left foot, right foot. I never reach that point of epiphany.
Yeah.
I never get.
That's okay.
Other things do it for me, right? No. But you know, and I wish I would have. This would probably be a good takeaway for me. I would like to go back to it. So physically moving, I think, is very important.
Yes.
So those 3. The last one, and I got this early on from my very first grief counselor, and I don't know if this echoes with you as well, which was he was like, now is not the time to go introspective. Now is not the time to meditate. Now is not time to like prayer. He goes, it's dark and scary in there. Go out in the big world and like see the world. Like early on, we're talking very early on.
Yeah,
we're talking the
very
first couple of months.
beginning.
He's like, don't go, because it's a mess in there. You don't want it. And then at some point, again, time is irrelevant. We'll just say it's 6 months. He goes, now might be a good time for you to meditate, for you to pray, for you to reflect inward, because you're a little more stable. And so that's my segue into, I was on an impromptu grief retreat. You can't get lightning in a bottle twice. It's a whole other story. But basically, I think it was 9 widows and widowers met in Breckenridge, Colorado. We'd never been in the same room before. Some of us never even met each other before. And it was amazing.
Awesome.
Someone had the mindset to have a leaded meditation session, and it was so powerful. And so I'm wondering if like maybe that's like a soul thing to try to like go back to that, because I feel, going back to my original statement of guys, again, I'm just a guy, so it's my own journey, my own life, my own view. It's like this tactile. It's like sometimes maybe you need to slow down and reflect inward to find some nuggets. So anyway, I think those were kind of my big ones.
Things that helped you.
Yeah.
And so you moved, so you said like a few years after. So I moved the first year, so I totally get it.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best things I ever did. I don't think that rule applies to everyone. You can't move in the first year. Like there's so many different situations. You know yourself what, you know. So you moved was it a few years later?
So I moved, so let's see, my daughter turned 3. So it was 2 years later. She moved 3, literally right when we moved into the house. And we lived there. This was all a plan that then turned plans. So we moved there. My older daughter graduated. She just happens to come to Colorado for college. I'm talking to one of the guys I mentioned before, some of my circle of trust friends, and I'm like, we're going to hang out here for a bit, and then figure out what I'm going to do after my oldest is done with college. And they're like, so you're going to have your kiddo start school and then move? And I'm like, yeah, because where I lived, I didn't want to live the rest of my life, no judgments. And I was like, it just wasn't for me. It was flat and cold, snowy. Had enough. And my family, for better or worse, lives literally at the time all over the world. So there's no place to come home. There wasn't like I'd go back home, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, where would I want to go? And there's certain things I like to do in my life. I like to be outside. I like the mountains and stuff. And so literally, what was it? The last Tuesday of July, a friend of mine was on. My wife and I were talking, and we think you should move now before the younger one starts kindergarten, which is in 2 weeks. And I was like, you're an idiot. And I hang up. I call my buddy and I go, listen to this dumb advice. And he goes, actually, it makes a lot of sense. I'm like, you're dumb too. So I call my third friend.
Come on, someone agree with me.
Same thing, right? He goes, no, it actually totally makes sense. And so I moved 1,000 miles, almost to the dot, from my house to the other house the day after my daughter turned 6 so she could start school here.
Wow.
You want to talk about insanity, right?
Yeah.
Lived in a hotel for a week until the stuff got here. So I did all the things, like, not, I mean, I was a little outside of a year, but I mean, I moved as far away as possible.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some interesting things that have happened with that move. So I was still close enough where I could go visit where my wife and I met, and we did things, Chicago, right? And I could go back to there and see some of her friends. Some of her friends had left the city, but we're kind of Midwest best, so I could still kind of connect to her. And then I had this realization not that long ago that I moved to a place where I see people every single day that never even knew my wife existed. Right?
Yeah.
They have no idea who she is.
Yep.
And it's very bizarre. All of a sudden it was like, oh, you don't even, and I am sure, I don't know how you dealt with this, but one of the things that's been interesting is to, like, you have to read the room. I'm 6 years out, so I'm a little better at this. I'm not as throw it in everyone's face when I meet them for the first time. My wife's dead.
Right.
Now it's more a little tact, but when people go like, oh, so you're a single dad. No, I'm solo. I'm a widower. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
Right. And I think because I said it earlier, context matters, right? Like, I'm not taking anything away from that. I've never had the privilege of being divorced. I don't know that I worked for that. That's the one thing I haven't done in my life. I've done everything else. But it comes with its own struggles. But I'm like, I'm not in that basket. And so it's very interesting to be around people, and no ding into like a new friend of mine, but like he texted me the other day and was like, hey, we're going to go do this thing Thursday night, kind of impromptu, like right after school. He texted me after the kids are out of school. I'm like, you can't kennel your kid. It's not okay to put your kid in a kennel with some treats. Like, I was like, I can't go. Right. They're all leaving their kids with their wives, which is great. I'm happy that they're happy and and I was like, I can't do that, but I have it's an interesting thing. Right. So anyway, so we moved. And I think I like what was it called again? When you do short term, what was it?
Oh, STIRBs, short term energy relieving behaviors.
Yeah, I did a lot of those. Some of mine may have been MERBs, like midterm, like, because it was moves not like short, but like
funny,
right, like it was kind of mid. And yeah, that's an interesting, because I think, again, going back to, I think about some of my other solo dads, and you listen to like the projects they're doing, the things they're doing, and it's almost like once they kind of get back to whatever normal means, but like they get in a routine, and you're looking at like all this tactile stuff they're doing, and they're like, well, I'm fine. Like, I'm fixing the house, I'm doing the car thing, teaching my kid how to drive. And it's like, but are you doing anything for yourself? And they're like, really, well, who has the time? And you're like,
you have to.
If you don't do it now, like you said earlier, it's coming.
Yeah. It's going to happen. I want to talk about some of the challenges, because we mostly have widows, but having a widower on here, like challenges of being a dad, doing it all on your own, grocery shopping, doctor's appointments. Like, tell me about that. What that's been like for you.
Actually, probably easier than being with a partner that would help. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
She was like, she's like, what? My wife was the organized one. I am not. I think one of the biggest struggles have been, and you'll hear about even in, like, again, I'm using, normal relationships, normal, happy people are married, person's alive. Anyway, that you hear like the delegation of duties, right? And you'll hear someone like, and we've all seen it on Instagram where it's like, what's your kid's birth weight? And I'm like, even I don't know. I was like, well, actually, I do know. She was just under 5 pounds, but
baby.
No, she's just under 6 pounds. Sorry, just under 6 pounds, like 5 pounds, 14 ounces, or whatever she's born. But anyway, but what's funny is like the things you don't remember, the things you do remember, just kind of organically. But one of my biggest struggles was assuming that I knew what I was doing, that I had no one. Here's this daughter, and I have no one to go like, well, what do you think? What about this pediatrician? What about, spacing her shots out? What about,
all the stuff that mom,
all this, and it's just, and you're just in this vacuum. And as for guys, I can't speak for all of us guys, but like, it's a wall that's really hard to like be vulnerable about. Go watch Brene Brown. Right? Like, vulnerability is a big thing, and going like, oh, well, I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know. And if I come forward saying I don't know things, what's going to happen? Right. And what else am I going to not know? So that was one of my struggles. The other one, and this just happened the other day, like literally this week. So we get an alert saying that my daughter isn't up till date on one of her vaccines. And I'm like, I don't know how that's not possible. I don't want to have a vaccine conversation, but I was like, I don't know how this for the school. And I'm like, I don't know how what? And we
Right.
got other things. I'm like, she's been to the doctor. How's this not going? So I call the doctor and I'm in a mad rush. I'm like, oh, hey, I got this alert. She needs to know. And they're like, okay. And I have what so bad. She's asking me for all these numbers off the insurance card. And I'm like, but she's like, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Okay, well, just bring it in. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, shoot, that's her dental card. I'm not kidding you. So I find the insurance card. I get it all right. She goes, now flip it over. And there's like a thing she needs on the back of this thing. And I'm reading it and I'm like, what? Why would the insurance card, I'm not kidding you, Michelle, have the Denver library information on it?
Oh my gosh.
My library card is stuck to the back.
That's funny.
I finally peel it off and you can hear the registering nurse going like, this dude's in charge. And I'm like, there needs to be another adult in this house. Like, this is so,
oh my gosh.
I was like, oh my gosh. So those sort of things have never probably happened with my wife. Like, I'm on the phone with the lady for 5 minutes and I was like, I can't get anything right. So I think that's been an interesting one. The doctor's appointments have been, interesting. And I'll say this for if any other widowers listen to this. So I have a mentoring widow who's much further down the road. Like, his girls are like grown out of, I think both are actually graduated college now at this point. And he told me, Matt, listen, he was in a similar situation, not quite as young, but we're going like his kids were like 8 and 6 when their mom died. And he goes, there will come a point where you go to a doctor's appointment, they're going to ask you to leave the room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, excuse me? He goes, you cannot. He goes, it's just what they have to do. And it's like a solo dad of 2 daughters. I'm like, what in the world? And so he's prepped me for that. But there's been some other ones where like I've had to ask these, they make me feel so uninformed, right? Because I'm a dad of daughters. And I got to ask a question and they kind of look at you and I'm like, well, I mean, I could Google it, but I'm here now. And this is probably the person I should be asking.
Yeah.
So you have to, again, kind of drop some vulnerability. Now, maybe if you have a tribe of people, like there's an aunt or someone you consider an aunt, maybe they can do those things. And then I think one of the other big struggles, and this will be an interesting to hear your take on this. So, and this is a true story that happened. So I mentioned the Mommy Me classes. I got we'll call her a nanny, right? During the days, just so I could get stuff done. I was like, and so I've been going to this Mommy Me class for probably about 2 months. And you can tell I'm extroverted. I have yellow lab energy, right? I'm like, everyone be my friend. And so I was trying to coordinate with other women of the Mommy Me. And I made it very clear I was widowed. My wife had died. Couldn't get anything going. Like no play dates, no whatever.
Really?
My nanny goes and has a play date set up after the first time. And they met and had coffee every week. Right?
They didn't know what to do.
You're a male.
Yeah.
Right? They're married.
Their husbands might be uncomfortable.
I get it. I'm not, but you're like, oh, wow. So there's this thing that happens. And I think that whether you're a solo dad or if you're a stay-at-home dad, I have a friend that is out in Chicago and he gets it. And he gets it sometimes as well, where people are like, no, you need to talk to my husband. You're like, well, your husband works internationally. He's gone like play dates are coordinated through me. And it's a very interesting struggle. And we talk about this sometimes on our podcast where it's like making general statements, but I feel like women have a framework for community when this happens. I'm not saying they necessarily have it, but like they have it kind of built in. And I also have this theory that women can get together to do a thing. Men have to get together to do the thing. So in other words, like we have to have a reason. I think I flipped that wrong. We have to have come over and fix my car engine and we'll talk about everything.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Women can talk about everything and go have a cup of coffee.
Right.
So it's almost flipped. So it's almost like guys have to have like a reason to get around. Well, we can't just pick up the phone and be like, let's have a deep conversation. Like come over and eat steak and we'll cry over the bourbon. But that's not really going to happen over a phone call, where I feel like women kind of have a different way of networking and building that community. So I think that was another struggle to find. And then you have to find like kind of whether they're single, happily married or whatever, you have to find like-minded dads. And it's a struggle sometimes, right? Where you're like, hey, like my kid is a huge part of my life and I love every aspect of it. And I'm deeply involved, where like another regular happily married dad's like, I don't know our pediatrician's name. And I'm like,
right.
Maybe you should do better. So I think that was early on that kind of just, and then just also a lot of it just not taking it personally, because going all the way back to like, people just don't know what they don't know. right? And people not like, I was a little offended, but I was like, well, now she has play dates and it's fine. But I was like, why didn't they want to play dates with me? And I was like, oh wait, I'm an unmarried man, widowed or not, right? And they're like, I can't be seen having coffee with you. And I'm like, what? So anyway, that was kind of an early on struggle. It's gotten much better. And then the other thing I realized too, now being 6 years out, and I'm stealing this from general life advice, which is no one's going to come knocking. If my daughter needs play dates, my wife's not setting them up. I am.
Right.
And no one's, not no one, but like I have to make a concerted effort to be like, hey, what are you guys doing on Saturday? Because there's not a second person having that conversation, right? My wife's not here.
Usually it's the woman arranging all of it.
Right. And all of a sudden I also realized, I'm like, wow, y'all schedule the heck out of life. Like, whew, second Google Calendar. So I think that would be the other thing is that, I think guys could probably get really, what's the old guy in a hermit-y, right? Get really like hermited and like secluded just because they're doing all the things just like a widowed mom is. But I think there's an atrophy that happens naturally if you don't pay attention. And kind of like you were talking about, like the differences you mentioned, like the guys like doctor's appointments and this and that, and like clothes shopping. Anyway, all the things, right? Yeah. Where you're going like, who do I have to mow my lawn? I'm like, everyone mows their lawn. It's easy. Just go and mow your, right? Like different struggles, not comparing.
My first one that I like cried about was setting a mousetrap. I'd never done it before.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, why do I have to learn? Because the boys thought there was a mouse in their room and Luke always did all that stuff. I was like, oh, I have to do this. It's just, and it was a trigger. And but I think what I want to talk about next, if you're comfortable talking about your daughter, is like, what has this been like for her, seeing all the little girls with their moms, and like, how is she dealing with this? Like I'm sure you talk about Marcy with her, like what's that like? Because my kids were older, so I'm curious, having a little one, what that's been like.
So I'll kind of do it. Okay. Like, it sounds like your boys were about my age when my dad died.
Yeah. My kids were 12, 14 and 15.
Yeah. So I was 11. Right. Yeah. And so I have half siblings, same dad, different mom. And like my older brother was 21, 22, I think, depending on if I do the math right. But, like one of the things I would say is like, is there ever a good time to lose a parent? Right. So my plus and minus is Blair will never have a single memory of her mom. Not one.
That's so hard.
It is. But at the same time, she doesn't really even know what she's missing. Right. She only knows me. I'm it. Right. And I mean, deep in her soul, thank goodness, she's about 98.4% her mom, which means she's uber smart. She's going to be just fine in that realm of her life. She's going to be great. I'm already worried that she's not going to need me in about 2 years. She's like 7. Like she's got it figured out. I had her file our taxes this year. I'm like, you do it. Yeah. So we're good there. And then like, I think about my older brother, like he was transitioning into the young man phase where like, I'm kind of that way with my older daughter now, where it's a different adult relationship. Yeah. Now. So there's never a good time. They all have this sucks. And so I just wanted to say that because like, there's no, like I lost my dad at 11, right when I needed like a dad. I'm like, could you, show me how to throw a spitball and set a mousetrap? Nope, he's gone. Right. Like, so whatever the analogies we want to do, change the oil in the car, whatever it is. And so, so with Blair, yes, we openly talk about Marcy's favorites. We talk about, we use it a lot of time. I don't know where it came up. We always say Mama Marcy. I don't know. There's not like other Marcys. So I don't know why we do Mama Marcy, but it just rolls off the tongue. So, it's like, what was Mama Marcy's favorite sports? What was her, Mama Marcy, loved this, or Mama Marcy did that, or before she met me, she lived in Ireland. And like, it's just kind of keeping it relevant. Right. So she's getting some amalgamation of who her mom was, kind of downloaded a little bit. But talk about the struggle. So this actually just happened. So, we over Halloween went to some friend's house, and they are a lesbian couple. There's 2 moms. And so we do the Halloween party, we go trick or treating, and kind of like she's with her friends. We're having a good time. Parents are walking behind doing the thing. And we'll go about 2/3 of the way of what I thought we'd be doing. Blair just kind of peels off and is like, can we just kind of go home? Can we just, I was like, oh yeah, sure, baby, tired, whatever. We get in the car, and it's not like we're far away. We're like 5 minutes to the house. Right. And I can kind of see her like, what's up? And just to pitch the heartbreak, she goes, well, I know some people have 1 mom, but some people have 2. I'm just like, oh yeah. yeah, so sorry, babe. Right? Like, it's
Poor
like,
baby.
right? And
She's
it's like,
it's not fair.
it's not
I don't even
fair.
have
She has
one.
two and one. And then if you get divorced and remarried, right? So some people have two of everything. I'm like, oh, this poor kiddo. So it comes out for her
Yeah.
and the way she is emotionally, it comes out kind of in some interesting ways.
Mm-hmm.
There will be times that I'm trying to think of a good example. There are times that it comes out and how she expresses it. And we have a therapist and we go when we need to, but it's interesting. I don't know about you, but my therapist, our family therapist, is like, you're doing great. And I'm like, then
Yeah.
why are we crying? It's like, you're doing all the things, right? But it'll come out like, I really miss mom. It'll just, she has a picture of several pictures, but she has one particular picture. I'm supposed to buy her a mom. She has a mom blanket that has a bunch of pictures of her mom on it.
I love it.
And now we have kind of like a mom space, what I like, which is she can cuddle up. There are times, and I don't think she probably can now, but there was a couple of events, and I think I even recorded about them on my podcast, where something happened and she couldn't tell you what it was because she's too young. But she did the whole thing that I remember doing when I was 11, like just crying and going like, I miss my dad and I miss you so much. And why'd you have to die? And I don't understand. And I miss you. And she's in her room and she'll make up a song she likes to sing. And you hear it and you're just like, oh my gosh. And you're like, well, what's wrong? And in her, I'll go use even ages. We'll go at 2, 4, and almost 6. She can't, now she kind of can. Right. And so I think early on, it was a lot of like, it's okay to have those feelings and let her see me have feelings. Right. And I obviously early on also had a very particular or specific or facial expression that she could see when she talked early. She'd be like, oh, you miss mama? Yeah. Something must have come over me, and she would just be like, I must have had a look. Yeah. And so I very openly, I'd cry in front of her. I would, just be like, yeah, I miss her. And it's just you and me, kiddo. And so early on it was like, she couldn't express, but it would come out. And now what I'm seeing is, what's the right word? The assimilation, the wanting to be, how do I put this delicately? How do I do this? Because spring stuff is out now, right? Clothes wise. What she is choosing for herself is a direct reflection of some girls in her class who come from moms that are very well put together. Right. It's not a judgment. Right. And just how they dress. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, what happened to the little cotton dresses we were doing? Yeah. And I'm okay with it not being, but it's a very, and then when we walk into school, when I walk her in, I'm like,
that's where it's coming from.
She is really flexing some femininity, right? That she is seeing and likes, and I'm fine. But I was like, I was like, oh. So I think that's another way that it's going to start coming out. Like there's been, and I'm not against it. I'm not, but she's been asking about like getting her ears pierced, and I'm like, whenever you want, babe. Like we can make it a thing with your auntie. We can do it with Grammy. We can go do it. She's like, well, maybe. And I was like, I just never got them pierced because I just didn't get them pierced. It wasn't any sort of, I just didn't. And so I think that's how it starts to come out when they're young. They see something and they can't quite articulate. They're like, well, I'm missing that.
Yes.
And then it'll come out either crying or wanting it. Right. And so that's how it happens now. She has a little letter written on her dresser right now about missing mom. And it just sits there. And, we have videos that we queue up a lot. Again, going back to terminal versus tragic, Marcy had the forethought. So she was interviewed for like 7 hours. So we have a whole legacy video.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a gift that has been super powerful and super wonderful, and being able to share it. And she left 4 or 5. She told her life story in 4 or 5 direct messages that she thought was important to give Blair, and then one to me, which is nice because in there is the permission to not too soon, to quote her, to move forward. We had talked about it before, but she in the video gives me permission to be happy.
That's a gift too.
Right. So lucky. So yeah. So in Blair, it kind of comes up that way. It'll be the thing I'll find interesting is to see. We'll go in the next 3 years, so like 7 to 10. like what brings it out, because there's certain movies I don't watch because they're gonna make me cry.
Right.
Not bad movies, just movies that she'll be like, can we watch this one? I'm like, or like Up, right? And I'm like, I can't
Oh
watch
yeah.
that.
Yes, that's sad.
Right, like, so it'll be interesting how maybe it starts to come out, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
like, oh, watching a movie and seeing like a mom-daughter relationship, or like if we
Right.
were to watch Freaky Friday or something,
Oh
right? Where
yeah.
she goes like, right, and she's like, well, I can't, like, well, this would be, so it'll be, but that's how it's
Yeah.
been coming out.
Mhm.
And there's definitely some extra snuggles. I was just recently away I'm very blessed. Again, these guys I talked about earlier, we take an annual trip where it's just
Oh,
us guys. It happens to be over Masters weekend because we're golfers.
Oh,
And I come
okay.
back and she is just super excited, super
Yeah.
cuddly, super goofy that I'm back home. Right. Because between my other daughter and my mom, we figured out watching her. And so it's interesting. Like, she doesn't get that way all the time when I leave.
Yeah.
Right. Or we don't see each other for an overnight or whatever. But just that interesting expression of like,
Yeah.
this is my one caregiver. So those are the things. And I would say, there are very good, and I'm sure we could probably post a couple of links. There are some very good age appropriate books about grief, like Ida Always. There's The Invisible String. There's A Bad Thing Happened. A lot of them have to do with grandparents, but they translate.
Mhm.
I wish there's one that's like, I Wish You Were More. And there's one book, I should go find it again, has such a great, wonderful ending to it. And it talks about like, it's like, it's almost like advice that I feel our missing spouse would give our kid. And the way it's written, it's not meant to be written that way, but when I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what the person that's not in the room would be saying to you. And it really, and we can't read it anymore.
Yeah.
So I think there's also some books that open the
Yeah.
gate, because it is difficult when the kids are super young, and I would say, I'll pick around under 10, the deaths are really, it just in their own vernacular, right? There is no
Right.
other word for dead. People say passed away and late, but it's like dead is dead. There's no other
Yeah.
word in the English language that means dead. And it's weird at a young age for them to be familiar with like the concept that everything dies. Like Blair, like someone's dog died. Blair's like, things die. And you're just like, ooh, oh, it's a little early for that kid. Like, whoa, boy. So, but that's kind of what we do. But I think generally speaking, with kids in grief, I believe giving them, just like our own grief, giving them a safe space to be able to express it, whatever that might mean for them.
I love that. It sounds like you're doing an amazing job with her. And I've seen her on your videos. She's super cute.
I know, she is.
And I want to transition into how you started meeting your widower community, and then like how you decided to start your podcast and all of that stuff.
Oh, thank you so much. So it kind of probably similar how you started yours, where like, I'm assuming you just didn't find anything that spoke directly to you.
Yep.
Right. And so kind of how it started was going back to this mentoring widower I have. So there was two widow. So a cancer widow friend of mine just happened to have a neighbor who lost his wife, and then a friend all the way back from college lose his wife within the span of 6 months, I think, after my wife died. And she had the forethought. She goes, I think you guys are kind of brothers from another mother type situation. I'm gonna put you all in touch. And so you'll hear them on my podcast. Their names are Ben and Ken. We kind of kicked it off. And so COVID happened and we're doing these Zoom calls. And I told my mentoring, his name's, I see it's Bill. Wow. William, my brain for a minute. And he's like, I think you guys should record these. I think like people would want to hear these. I'm like, well, again, my typical response, you're an idiot. And so I kind of go to Ben and Ken and I go like, what do you think about recording these? Because anytime I look for anything, mad props to the widower's journey. It's wonderful for seasoned widowers, right? Not necessarily raising kid widowers. He touches on good stuff, but it just didn't speak to me. It was really the only one I could find at the time. And so, pro tip on podcasting, early on, we did a lot of enjoying libations when we recorded. And the pro tip is keep the bottle away from the microphone. So the first couple of recordings will never hit the air because I'm like, what's a train wreck? Like the first 45 minutes are good and the next 45 bad. But anyway, and so it just kind of, it started that way. And so then we started recording them, and we just told ourselves, if it helps one person, right? If it's a page, if a page out of my journey can help one person, it's worth it. And we kind of have to remind ourselves of that, right? And so it started with that. And then I was like, well, I should probably have a Facebook group where a community could be formed. And because I don't use widower, and because it's only for, we have a couple of exceptions, but it's only for solo dads and not single dads, just solo dads. Now, if you're divorced and your person passed away, yes, obviously you're now a solo dad and you're more than welcome into the group. But so what I had to do is I had to go, I had to go into single dad groups. So, dad groups, some widow groups, obviously. And if see a guy post and I just saddle up next to him and awkwardly go like, "Hey, your wife's dead. You want to come hang out?" Not in a weird way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so one of my admins of my Facebook group, he still has, I think he took a screenshot of it. I just like sent him a Facebook message like, "So, kind of awkward, but see your wife's dead too. Would you want to like come join this group?" Early on, I didn't know what to do. Right. Now I have a much more elegant way of introducing people. Like there's a tribe of dads that are trying to figure out this raising kids and grief thing. If you want to come check it out. So it just started that way, and it's all organic, much like yours. Just creating a space for dads. And so there's the Solo Dad Facebook group. I use the tag Solo Dad for everything. So I'm on TikTok and Instagram and doing the podcast. And then it, as we're talking before we recorded, I think it's a natural progression. I think you've kind of gone through this too, where you go, okay, I can have a bunch of, we'll just say solo moms or widows on your group, on your podcast, but then eventually you kind of go like, okay, I still want a space for guys to share their story. But now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, share your story. And what are we getting out of it?
Exactly.
Do I get someone on that talks about financial planning after the death? Do I get someone that talks about, I'll use the air quotes, a dating expert? Do we have a dating cover? Do we have a conversation about, what do you do when your kid leaves the house? You become an empty nester. And if you're still, like, I know I have a lot of solo dad, there's a section of solo dads, and I'm sure there's a section of widows too, that are like, my kids are, their dad, they're 16, 14, and 12. And they're like, I'm just going for 6 years. I'm just going to focus on this. And then I'll start my chapter of life after that. Great. That's okay. But what are you going to be like in 6 years? Have you learned to play the guitar? Are you healthier? Are you, deeply committed into a organization that you believe in and support? Because you should be a different version of yourself with grief than you are without it. And so that's kind of how it came about. And surprisingly, Bill was right. People wanted to hear it. And I've had even just dads, because we'll talk about dadding stuff. It applies more or less, whether you're married or not. And I do have a couple of friends that listen to the podcast. And one of the things that they take away is there's a great newfound appreciation for their wives.
That's good.
Right. For their spouses. I'm sure right. I can't speak for widows because that's not who necessarily I always talk to about, but I have some friends that are like, listening to you talk about what it's like to be a solo dad makes me really, really appreciate my wife. And I'm like, as you should. Right. And if they're a horrible wife, well, then just figure it out and then you'll appreciate it even more. If you have a horrible spouse, trust me, it's better than having no spouse at all. So that's kind of how it came about. And it's been cathartic. It's been good. It's been well received. I think you and I were talking before, like I struggle with some imposter syndrome at time where I'm like, who wants to hear me prattle on? But I also think from like listening to people like you, watching people like you with their journey, whether it's hope, whether it's just taking nuggets from what you've done to help you to apply to other things, I think is super important. There's a great, I wish I could remember her name, but there's a book called The Grieving Brain. It's the first book ever written about the science of someone grieving.
Is that Carolyn Leaf?
It might be her.
Or, I don't know.
Anyway, but she just, because she didn't skip it. She just didn't dive into it. She just came out with a book called The Grieving Body, which is very similar, like the body keeps the score.
Oh yeah.
Right. But she's very science-based about like, why does this hurt when I'm grieving or what? And so, where I was going with that is like, grief is a very unexplored area, whether it was taboo to talk about being sad, or if you do the ratio of 7 widows to 1 widower, and it's like women aren't supposed to talk about their dead husbands or whatever the social norms were 50, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
I think we're in a space now where we go like, grief's a real thing, and grief comes in all sorts of weird ways. Like you can grieve. I'm again, not comparing, just saying the death of a pet brings grief. No, but I'm not comparing, but you know what? But brings grief. Yes. Divorce brings grief to your doorstep. The death of a child brings grief to your doorstep. One that I don't know. The death of your parents is grief. Like the death of a career you thought were going to have grief. Yeah. And so I think that we're in a place now where, again, I'm not saying pet death is the same as a spouse death, right? But it brings grief, and people sometimes they just don't realize they need to exercise that grief to be able to move forward with I don't like the word chapter 2. I don't think you do either. But like the next version of our lives, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like we've talked about this in our solo dad group. We don't like the word chapter 2 because it somehow like negates the first chapter. Like it just leaves, because someone was like, why don't I like that word? I said, I don't like it either. I understand it's a way to form a word so we can describe what it is. But I'm like, yeah, but it feels like the first chapter didn't mean as much. But anyway, anyway, that's my own.
Yes.
But yeah.
Well, I love what you've done in this community and representing. I mean, there's not a lot of widowers who have resources. That's what I've heard. You know, a
Correct.
lot of my widowers like that I know, they don't have the resources of like, well, first of all, so widows don't even have very many widows groups. That's why I started groups, and I only do like widows. Like my podcast is for widows and widowers, and just because it's a different feel, I just wanted widows in mind. So I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you. And
Right.
it's like there's not as much, there's more widows retreats than widower. I
Yep.
definitely know that. And so the fact that you stepped up to create a space for men to come to, widowed men, solo dads, I think is amazing. Is that something that you could send me a link we can put in the podcast for the solo dads that are listening?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And can their kids be grown? Like, what is your...
Well, that's interesting. So, what's interesting is yes, their kids can be grown, because I also think that like there's a guy in the group that definitely his kids have left, but he was widowed while the kids were at home. So he brings like a seasoned view to it. I think for the empty nesters, it would kind of just depend on where they're at. Like if I catch their post and it's like, they're like, I have a college kid and they're struggling because their mom died when they're away at college, then yeah, I'd probably say, yeah. I think that if like they are true empty nesters and like their kids are 35, I'd be like, I don't know. I mean, you're always a dad, but they're more than welcome.
Different issues.
Yeah. And I think it's more about like they're more than welcome in there. I think it's more going to be about like, listen, we're going to be talking about raising kids stuff, not how to diversify your 401k before you retire. Like it's right. It's a little different. So, but yeah, I'll definitely give you the link to all the groups and all my stuff. And then just a little bit of a teaser, and I'm giving you credit as well. There's several of y'all, widows, that have done some amazing retreat stuff. I've seen some cruise groups going on. And I've always wanted to. And I think that seeing what you've done and seeing what others have done, I'm like, you know what, to take a quote from Nike, just do it and get 8 dudes together. And if it winds up being 8 or 80 and whatever it turns into, there is an amazing, have you seen the one? And I'll find it for you. If not, there's an amazing Christian-based one that
the
for
men
men
one for like refugee widow. No, that's not what it's called.
No, there's Refuge and Grief, but there's a really good.
I think
really
I've
good.
seen it, and I was like, that looks like a great
It
one.
is powerful. A couple of my guys in the solo dad group have done it, and I mean, it between eating steak for a night and bending nails to fire or something, I'm like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
It is faith-based, but it gets really well received, because I think actually what it is one, it was a pastor's wife and one was a pastor, and they lost their people and they came together and they created a thing, and it's really good. So I'll find a link for it. But yeah,
that'd be awesome.
It's inspiring me to do something for because I mean, listen, there's a spot for so much. There's so much grief in the world that I think there's a spot for all of us to be able to be of service.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, so there, I think I need to lean into that a little more. And I live in Denver. Who doesn't want to come and see the beautiful mountains and cry?
That's true. Yeah. No, I've done, I've put on 2 myself. I mean, with help.
Of course.
And then I've gone to a few other ones, but it's amazing. It's healing. You leave with these people are like your best friends.
Yep.
Like it's absolutely, there's just something about it. Just being with other people who get it.
Yes.
And I think it's such a powerful thing. And I think you could definitely find the people, and it's just the planning the details, all the stuff that's kind of hard, but you'll figure that out. But I know, and if you do get that going and you need more people, let me know. We can put it in my group too.
Oh, thank you so much.
Because I think there's a lot of men that could plug into that. So, well, we're gonna wrap it up today, but I'm gonna ask you one more question. What is your advice for a brand new widow or widower? I know there's so much, but so anything you would say, because I'm sure you do this all the time, as do I.
I think the first thing I would say, and I wish I could articulate it better because I did say it once and I really like the way I said it because I didn't understand these words early on. but giving yourself space and grace.
Oh, I love that space.
Right?
And grace.
Space and grace. And grace is an interesting word, right? And it's like giving yourself permission to not do all the things that you think you should be doing. That would be my first thing.
So good.
Right? The second thing I would say, and this one goes for everybody, which is take all the help. All of it.
Yes.
And no dig on the people that love you for eternity and your friends and your family, but their life is going to go back to their normal much faster than yours will. So if someone wants to come fold your socks, let them.
That's right. That's so good.
It's right. Like if they want to make you 400 lasagnas, let them, because I'm telling you, it's going to go away faster than you think. Because when they say call me for anything you need, they mean it in the moment, but they don't actually know what they're signing up for. Right. So like I couldn't call anybody when Blair was screaming with a fever at 2 a.m. It's not what they, right.
They didn't mean it
so,
then. Yeah.
Right. Well, they did, but right. Like, it's like, they're like, that's
you're
not the type of call they're right.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do it. So I'd say take all the help. And especially for men, because we're so bad at asking for help, just take it. If someone's offering to mow your lawn, to paint your house, to fold your socks, to do your ironing, to cook for you for a week, take it. Take it. So and then I think the last thing would be what we've already kind of talked about. Find whatever it means for you. I guess early on it's kind of hard. Yeah, I'd still say it. Find whatever it means to you that makes you feel like you're healing again.
That's good.
Whether if it's doing nothing, whether it's journaling, whether it's, taking trips to remember the things, whatever. Because I feel that so many people in grief get stuck.
Yeah.
You see it probably in your groups. I see it in mine, where I'm like, you're washing the dishes, you're raising the kids, you're doing the things, but you've been doing that for 4 years. So why aren't you? And it's a phrase I use in the Soledad. It's a quote that I hope that will be on my book one day. I'm not writing one yet, but which is, it's the climb back to learning how to live again and maybe finding love.
So good. That's
and if you're
really
not
good.
doing the work, you're not going to be able to make that climb.
Yeah.
So those are I'd say the three things are: give yourself the space and grace, take the help that's there early on, and find something that is making you feel like you're healing, whether that's therapy, whether it's journaling, whatever, because you may not use it right away, but at some point you're going to go like, I want to feel like it all wasn't for nothing.
That's good.
So those would be the three things.
So good. Thank you.
Of course.
Well,
Great
I
question.
like to close my podcast in prayer for you and for the audience. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Dear God, we just thank you so much for Mathew coming on this podcast. Thank you for everything he does for widowers, for his heart. Thank you for Blair. And I just pray peace over her, God, and that you'll just put these women in her life to just fill those roles that she needs, and just continue to help Mathew to know how to be a solo dad. And I just pray over his podcast and all the things he's doing, that he will be able to reach lots of people. And I also pray for the audience today, God, that you will cover them with the peace that passes all understanding, and just help them get through the day, bring joy into their life, and just help them to feel loved. And we just thank you for this day. Amen.
Amen. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, if you like this podcast, give it a little bing, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that you listen. You know, it just rolls off your tongue when you've done it like 173 times or something. Anyways, and then you guys make sure you join our Widowed Too Soon Facebook page. We have the big one. And then if you want to be part of the secret one, there's a link. You can only find it if you are a podcast listener. Because what we found was like our podcast one was like under 1,000, and all of a sudden it blew up to 12,400 or whatever. And most people don't know on that group. I tell them over and over, they don't know it's based on the podcast. And so the podcast listeners were like, we still want our community. It's less than 100. Like, it's a very small group. And so you can request, you can be on it since you're a guest. Mathew, you're welcome to be in our secret group.
That is so cool. That's an interesting.
Well, so they
segment.
can't, you just make a Facebook group, make it private and invisible. I think it's invisible, or like there's somewhere that nobody can find it. And you can't even send a link, because the link will expire in a day or two. So on my podcast, I just tell them to message me on Facebook. I gave them the link to my Facebook page, and then I send it. And it's
that's so cool.
Yeah,
good for you.
So that's how you can be part of the
secret grief group.
The secret group. But anyways, join our big one. There's all the links in the show notes, and definitely go follow the Solo Dad podcast. Listen to that. Follow him on TikTok, all the places. There'll be links for that. If you are a solo dad, join his group. And I think that'd be an awesome place to have community. So thanks again, everyone. And thanks for being here, Matthew. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.